Thank you for joining us. To give you an overview of what we will be covering today, this webcast is structured as follows. We will have a brief introduction to the Water Laboratory Alliance. We will talk about the reasons EPA developed the COOP template and the reasons a laboratory should prepare one. We will go over the contents of a COOP and get a brief taste of the functionality of EPA's COOP template, which is freely available for you to use and adapt. And finally, we will give a brief overview of other Water Lab Alliance resources that you may find helpful. Many of you probably have a basic understanding of the Water Laboratory Alliance, so I'll keep my overview of the WLA network brief, but if you would like additional information, please visit the Water Lab Alliance's website, which is at www.epa.gov/waterlabnetwork. So the Homeland Security Presidential Directive 9 directed EPA to develop nationwide laboratory networks for, among other media, water quality that integrate existing federal and state laboratory resources, are interconnected, and utilize standardized diagnostic protocols and procedures. In order to meet the goals set forth in this directive, EPA has collaborated with multiple federal agencies and partners at the state and local levels. These partners have included public health labs, environmental labs, health departments, water systems, and emergency response personnel. To fully address the directive, EPA developed the Environmental Response Laboratory Network, or ERLN. ERLN utilizes an all-hazards approach that provides laboratory capabilities to analyze air, soil, surfaces, and water. The Water Lab Alliance is part of the ERLN and provides the water sector with a nationwide network of laboratories to support the response to water contamination incidents. Now, stepping back, the ERLN and Water Lab Alliance serve as a member of the larger Integrated Consortium of Laboratory Networks, or ICLN. Over the years, the ICLN has continued to expand, incorporating additional laboratory networks to address analytical needs of a variety of sectors and led by partner agencies. All right, so now I'd like to talk a little bit about the driving force behind the development of the COOP template. A COOP, or Continuity of Operations Plan, is a document that provides an organization with guidelines for ensuring and maintaining functionality for long periods of time in the event of a natural disaster or other incident that could disrupt normal operations. When the Water Lab Alliance decided to develop a COOP for water laboratories, it modeled it after a water utility COOP. The project was led by one of our WLA liaisons, Daniel Quintanar, who is the Water Quality and Operations Project Manager for the City of Tucson Water Department. And in order to bridge the gap between the requirements of a utility and the requirements of a laboratory, EPA looked to other resources as well, including COOP guidelines developed by the Association of Public Health Laboratories, or APHL. Working with these two organizations and other subject matter experts, the WLA team refined the product, resulting in a COOP template that is applicable to any type of laboratory, including private, state, and utility. So what value does a COOP provide to a lab? Laboratories will observe multiple benefits, such as enhancing the laboratory's ability to continue essential functions during an incident, making explicit the policies and procedures that should be used before, during, and after an incident, identifying resources that may be required to respond to an incident and prompting the laboratory to make arrangements before an incident occurs, for example, to enter into agreements with other laboratories or joint mutual aid associations, and helping ensure the laboratory's ability to continue providing analytical services to water utilities and other customers who may be facing operational challenges of their own during an incident. Moving on to what is included in a standard COOP. A COOP consists of a basic plan and various annexes, all designed to ensure your lab can maintain essential functions during an incident. The basic plan is divided into 8 sections and is the framework of the document. And I'll cover the other sections in more detail in subsequent slides. The functional annexes provide specific and more detailed information and direction, fleshing out the framework presented in the basic plan. The hazard-specific appendices cover special planning needs, such as response details unique to a particular type of incident. One would not, for example, use all the same procedures in the event of a fire as one would in the event of a flood. The annex implementing instructions provide further information on the different sections of the COOP. And finally, in the quick reference annexes, you will find definitions of various terms and acronyms throughout the document. Additionally, you'll find references and links to resources outside the COOP. Turning now to the basic plan. The first section of the basic plan covers the purpose, scope, situation overview, and planning assumptions, the overall framework of the plan. The purpose section identifies essential functions, and essential functions will vary from lab to lab, but as an example, let's say analysis of drinking water samples for chemical or biological contaminants is designated as an essential function of your lab. The scope identifies the range of incidents that are envisioned in the COOP and the range of resources and activities required to support essential functions. So, analysis of drinking water samples for biological and chemical contaminants will require trained personnel, media, reagents, supplies, instrumentation, working communication lines, and power, etc. The situation overview explains why the COOP is necessary, and this typically includes a thorough risk assessment of potential threats. Planning assumptions. This section provides underlying assumptions made in the planning process, which helps to assess when and to what extent the COOP should be activated. Some examples of these assumptions may include the availability of cross-trained staff, redundancy of information technology systems, availability of alternate facilities, and agreements in place, such as with the Water and Wastewater Agency Response Network, or WARN. The second section of the basic plan is comprised of 4 phases. Phase 1, in the concept of operations, addresses readiness and preparedness activities and tools for the overall lab and personnel to ensure the ability to respond to a continuity event. For example, the lab may incorporate access to the Water Contaminant Information Tool, WISIT, or the selected analytical methods for environmental restoration following Homeland Security events, known by the acronym SAM, as well as to conduct exercises, cross-train staff, and be a member of the ERLN and Water Lab Alliance and WARN. Phase 2. This phase describes the COOP activation process and procedures that are put in place to keep a lab's essential functions going. And it may be best described visually. We've got an illustration here. Here we have a decision tree that breaks down the process or procedure for activating your COOP. The laboratory director or manager will evaluate the incident impact on lab functions and its ability to continue to run essential functions, and then decide to activate the COOP and to what extent. Depending on the situation, activation of the COOP might not be necessary at all, or it will only need to be partially activated to address certain issues. So moving on to phase 3, the continuity operations phase should describe initial operational processes and procedures that are necessary for continuation of essential functions. And the last phase of the concept of operations details the plan for returning to normal operations after the incident has ended or passed. This should include details like a procedure and timeline for returning staff and equipment if they were relocated to another facility during the incident. Next in the basic plan is the organization and assignment of responsibilities section. This is where the COOP delineates continuity responsibilities for key staff in the lab. There are some special considerations you should take into account when developing this section. It is important to consider that not all staff may be available from day to day and incorporate that into the plan. Also remember that administrative and IT support should be included in the plan and that key staff are not limited to management and lab analysts. The disaster intelligence section details your means and methods of collecting and disseminating critical information during an incident. Access to additional sources of information, including Department of Homeland Security, other federal and state agencies, and your governor's office, will be critical during a widespread incident like a massive earthquake or a pandemic. The communication section should identify and discuss the availability and redundancy of critical communications, for example, satellite phones and two-way radios, and IT systems to support connectivity during crisis and disaster conditions. Backup generators are very important for maintaining communication systems. Assistance agreements. This section describes the processes and procedures for developing and implementing agreements, for example, with WARN, the Water Lab Alliance, and neighboring labs, necessary for continuation of the laboratory as essential functions. Ideally, you will really want agreements to be set up with appropriate parties prior to activating the COOP. Then we have plan development and maintenance. This is the process the laboratory uses to ensure the COOP includes up-to-date information. Basically, the COOP is a living document. You will also need to assign someone to ensure that the COOP is updated as needed, for example, to capture any changes in staff or essential functions, and on a regular basis, whether monthly, yearly, or in some other time frame. Finally, the authorities and references section will have a list of key authorities and references on which the laboratory's COOP is based. This provides justification for the who, how, what, and why of the laboratory's COOP. And now we'll briefly discuss the different types of annexes in the COOP. First, we have the functional annexes. These will add specific information and direction to the basic plan. The functional annexes can be broken down into 4 categories. The essential functions annex stipulates the laboratory's prioritized essential or core functions, including identifying the components, processes, and requirements that ensure the continued performance of the laboratory's essential functions. The continuity facilities annex identifies the continuity facility, for example, a neighboring laboratory or a mutual aid network, that can support operational functions in the event of prolonged impacts to normal functionality. The Continuity Communications Annex identifies the backup communications methods, for example, satellite phones, in place to allow the laboratory to continue necessary communications in the event their primary means of communication is no longer operational. The Test, Training, and Exercise Program Annex details the laboratory's plan for training key personnel, testing the processes within the COOP, and making adjustments to the plan as necessary. Hazard-specific indices should include different scenarios based on hazards of concern that are specific to the individual laboratory. They should focus on the special planning needs generated by each hazard. For example, a pandemic situation will most likely pose a different set of problems than, say, a flood or loss of power. Finally, we have the reference annexes. These are fairly self-explanatory. They consist of a glossary, a list of authorities and references, and acronyms. All right, so in the next section of this training, we will give a brief introduction to and demonstration of EPA's COOP template. So first, the benefits of the COOP template. Developing a COOP can be a very daunting task. The COOP template makes it much easier by walking you, the user, through the process in a step-by-step fashion. The template provides an established format and guides the user through each section, including prompts indicating what information is required in each section. The accompanying COOP instructions provide detailed information and examples that can be used to develop or present information required in each of the sections. A COOP template fact sheet is also available as a resource. The COOP should be evaluated and updated regularly, annually may be appropriate, as well as following any periods of substantial change in staffing or internal procedures. And laboratories are encouraged to exercise the plan on an annual basis. All right, so now we're going to switch over and do a very brief demo of the tool. So this is the Continuity of Operations Plan template that is available on EPA's website. One nice feature of the template is that it includes an auto-populate function. Let me go down to our title page here. So once you enter the name of your laboratory on the cover page, bear with me here. It will automatically populate the rest of the template. Let me put this in all caps to make it easier to see. And if we go down to the beginning of the text, Here we are. You'll see that what we entered on the first page auto-populates in appropriate places elsewhere in the document. And as we scroll through the documents, you'll notice gold key headings. These contain gold keys by the heading. So these indicate the presence in pop-up windows of important information that is there to facilitate the development of each section. And scrolling down a little further on page 3, you can see a list of potential readiness and preparedness activities that are available for laboratories, such as WSIT, the Laboratory Compendium, the Water Lab Alliance and WARN membership, and conducting cross-trainings for staff. And these are all great activities and tools worth looking into if your lab doesn't already participate in them or have access to them. You'll also notice that a key component of COOP is constantly reviewing and updating the document based on exercises and yearly reviews. Here we have, yes, modification based on exercises and trainings. And we've got drop downs here that you can use, as well as customizing the information itself. One other thing I'd like to point out here in the test training and exercises annex, an essential part to assessing and improving your lab's ability to execute the COOP is testing, training, and completing exercises. This table helps establish the frequency of each such activity throughout the year. And this has the ability for you to very quickly and easily add check marks as you need to. All right, so that is the COOP template in a nutshell. It is designed to streamline the development of your own COOP based on other proven and already established COOP documents. I want to point out in closing, I'd like to say a few words about other resources that you may find valuable. The Water Lab Alliance team regularly offers webcast trainings on a variety of topics, some of which are listed here. We encourage you to visit the EPA website to learn more, to find more information about upcoming Water Lab Alliance webinars and to register. We also encourage you to take advantage of the Water Lab Alliance team's on-demand training opportunities, which can be found on the WLA homepage. Current course offerings are listed on the screen, and all are available to enhance your organization's preparedness free of charge. The link to the COOP template and instructions are on the WLA homepage. And this is not very easy to read, but you'll see it's a highlighted one here in the lower left. One more resource to point out concerns reimbursement. Emergency response and recovery costs incurred by laboratories supporting the water sector may be eligible for reimbursement through local, state, or federal mechanisms. If you would like more information on this topic, I encourage you to check out the Water Lab Alliance's Reimbursement Tips Fact Sheet. And there is a link to this as well from the Water Lab Alliance homepage. One parting thought, a disaster is not the time to exchange business cards. This is a motto of the Water Lab Alliance. Please help us get the word out about the COOP template and other free resources and upcoming training opportunities. We want as many stakeholders as possible to take advantage and to help us ensure water sector preparedness.